For 24 years, I was the adopted daughter who never quite belonged. While I held my parents' hands as they died from COVID, my trio of siblings sent texts. At the will reading, they expected their inheritance. But my parents had left them something far more valuable than money, a devastating lesson on what family truly means. What happened next redefined my life forever. My name is Grace Williams. For 28 years, I lived in the shadow of a word, adopted. It was the label my siblings, Michael, Sarah, and Jennifer, used to draw a circle I could never quite enter. The night everything changed, we were sitting in our parents' dining room, a room that still smelled of my mother's lemon polish and my father's pipe tobacco, a haunting echo of the love that once lived there. The table was set with my mother's best china, the delicate floral pattern I'd helped her wash by hand so many times. We were supposed to be mourning, but the air was thick with avarice. The conversation had quickly turned from shared memories to cold, hard calculus, property valuations, antique appraisals, and the division of a life. That's when Sarah, with a smirk that didn't reach her eyes, decided to re-establish the old hierarchy. "You know, Grace," she said, her voice dripping with false sweetness, "maybe you should take your plate to the kitchen. Adopted kids don't really deserve to sit with the real family at the big table." The laughter that followed was a physical blow. Michael chuckled into his wine glass, and Jennifer let out a tinkling, fake laugh, her eyes glinting with meanness. I looked around at their faces, these people I had called brother and sisters my entire life, and felt the last fragile thread of familial bond snap. But instead of shattering, I solidified. A profound calm settled over me. I smiled, a slow, deliberate smile that made their laughter falter. Without a word, I reached into my purse and pulled out the crisp, white envelope from Thompson & Associates. I let it hover for a moment before dropping it with a soft thud onto the center of my mother's pristine tablecloth. "You might want to call your lawyers," I said, my voice as steady as granite. "We have a meeting tomorrow at 9 a.m. at Thompson & Associates regarding Mom and Dad's will. I'd suggest you all attend. What you hear will change everything." Part 1, The Vigil. To understand the depth of their betrayal, you have to understand the depth of my devotion. When Mom and Dad both fell ill with COVID during that brutal winter surge, I didn't hesitate. My siblings, of course, had their reasons. Michael, the high-powered investment banker in his Charlotte high-rise, was indispensable. He'd take my frantic calls about dropping oxygen levels while I could hear the clack of his keyboard in the background. "Just do what you think is best, Grace," he'd say, his voice distant, already moving on to the next deal. Sarah, the devoted mother of twins, couldn't possibly risk exposing her babies. She sent casseroles we couldn't eat and texted demands for updates she could repackage as her own concern on Facebook. Jennifer, the hospital administrator, claimed the irony wasn't lost on me, that she couldn't bear to see the clinical reality of sickness in her own parents. She managed a fleet of nurses, but couldn't muster the courage to hold her dying father's hand. So, I went alone. I left my two beautiful children, Emma and Jake, with my incredible husband, David, and I moved into that hospital. For weeks, my world shrank to the beeps of monitors, the hiss of ventilators, and the grim, determined kindness of the ICU staff. I learned to read the subtle shifts in the numbers on the screens. I held my mother's hand through thick plastic gloves, telling her stories about the kids, reminding her of the garden she loved, while my father fought for breath in the room next door. I signed "Do Not Resuscitate" orders with a hand that shook so badly the signature was barely legible. I authorized experimental treatments, my stomach churning with the weight of the decision. When my mother passed on a quiet Tuesday morning, her last breath fogging the plastic barrier between us, I was there. I whispered promises to her that I would look after Dad, that he wouldn't be alone. He lasted only 3 more days. His final words, raspy and faint, were, "Take care of Grace." I thought it was a plea for emotional support. I had no idea it was a command. Part 2, The Unraveling. The funeral was a spectacle of performative grief. Michael gave a grand eulogy full of generic platitudes, accepting condolences like a statesman. Sarah sobbed dramatically on her husband's shoulder, and Jennifer expertly directed the funeral home staff. I stood to the side, hollowed out, my grief a quiet, private crater inside me. The gathering at the house afterward felt like a violation. They moved through our parents' home like prospectors, their eyes assessing the value of the furniture, the art, the jewelry. "We should get the house appraised soon," Michael stated, as if discussing a stock portfolio. "The market in Dilworth is hot." "Absolutely," Sarah chimed in, her eyes gleaming. "And Mom's jewelry needs a professional appraisal. That diamond necklace must be worth a fortune." It was Jennifer who suggested the family dinner for the following week. "We need to do this properly," she said, with that saccharine smile I knew too well. A real family meal to discuss everything like adults. I knew it was a trap, but I also knew I had to go. I had a truth to deliver. The call from Attorney Thompson came the next morning. In his office, surrounded by legal tomes and the scent of old paper, he slid a folder across his desk. "Grace," he began gently, "your parents updated their wills 6 months ago, immediately after your father's diagnosis. They were very specific, very clear." He opened the file. "They have left their entire estate to you. The house, valued at approximately $850,000. Their investment portfolio, totaling $1.2 million. Their life insurance policies, another $500,000. They also established irrevocable trust funds for Emma and Jake's college education." The numbers swirled in my head, meaningless in the face of the seismic shift they represented. What about Michael? Sarah? Jennifer? "They are not named as beneficiaries in any capacity," Mr. Thompson said quietly. Then he handed me the letter. My mother's elegant script blurred through my sudden tears. "Dearest Grace, if you're reading this, then your father and I are gone. Please don't be sad for too long. We had a wonderful life, made infinitely better the day we brought you home. We have eyes, my love. We saw everything. Every forgotten birthday invitation for your children, every holiday you spent wondering why you weren't included, every casual, cutting remark that made you feel like a guest in our family. We saw it, and it broke our hearts. And when we fell ill, we saw who showed up. You sacrificed everything, your time, your energy, your own family's comfort, to hold our hands and fight for us. You were our daughter in every sense of the word, especially when it mattered most. They were merely relatives by blood. This is not about punishment. This is about justice. This is about honoring the child who honored us. You were chosen once, at 4 years old, from a foster system that had been unkind. Now, we choose you again. Take this gift and build a beautiful, secure, and joyful life. You have more than earned it. With all our love, now and always. Mom and Dad." I held that letter to my chest and wept for my loss, for their love, and for the stunning vindication that washed over me. Part 3, The Reckoning and the Rebirth. The dinner was a perfectly set stage for their final performance. As they laughed at Sarah's joke, I saw my entire childhood flash before my eyes, the excluded birthdays, the whispered conversations that stopped when I entered the room, the constant, grinding feeling of being less than. When I dropped that envelope and delivered my lines, the silence was more deafening than their laughter had been. Michael, ever the financier, snatched the letter first. His face, usually a mask of smug confidence, drained of all color. This can't be right. This has to be a mistake. Jennifer read it next, her professional composure shattering. They can't do this. This isn't legal. We'll contest this. Sarah simply burst into angry, entitled tears. That's our money. That's our house. I stood, my chair scraping softly against the hardwood floor. For 24 years, you made me feel like an outsider. You drew a line in the sand and told me I didn't belong on your side. Mom and Dad saw it all. And when they were dying, and they needed their children the most, you were nowhere to be found. I was. You made your choices. They made theirs. I walked to the door, then turned for a final look at the family I was leaving behind. I'll be putting the house on the market. The memories here, they aren't the ones I want to keep. The aftermath was a storm of desperate phone calls and legal threats that eventually fizzled out. My parents' will was ironclad. The real children were left with nothing but the consequences of their own cruelty. David and I paid off our mortgage, secured our children's future, and for the first time in our lives, breathed without the weight of financial anxiety. But the true completion of our family happened by chance, in a grocery store aisle. I ran into Patricia Chen, the social worker from the hospital. After catching up, her expression grew serious. Grace, this might seem out of the blue, but I remember you mentioning you were adopted. There are 2 little girls in the system, sisters. Lily and Rose. Their parents died from COVID complications. There's no family able to take them both. They need a home, a real one. The moment she said their names, I felt a pull, a cosmic sense of rightness. David didn't hesitate. We have more than enough love to give, he said, simply. The adoption process was long and intensive. But 8 months later, we brought Lily and Rose home. Our house, once a place of quiet security, was now filled with the glorious, messy noise of a family made whole. That first night, as I tucked Rose into her new bed, she looked up at me with wide, solemn eyes. Are you really our mama now? Forever? I felt the ghost of my own mother's love surrounding me. I smoothed Rose's hair and kissed her forehead. Forever and always, sweetheart, I whispered. You are safe. You are chosen. You are home. Jennifer called me recently, on the 1-year anniversary of the will reading. She'd seen the pictures of our expanded family on a mutual friend's social media. You look happy, Grace, she said, her voice thin. I am, I replied, and I truly was. I forgave you all a long time ago. But forgiveness doesn't mean a return to what was. My family is complete now. As I hung up, I looked out the window at my children, Emma, Jake, Lily, and Rose, playing together in the backyard. David came up behind me, wrapping his arms around my waist. Everything okay? He asked. I leaned back into his embrace, watching my chosen, chaotic, beautiful family. Everything, I said, with a peace that settled deep in my bones, is perfect.